Hi everyone, my name is Victoria Fernandez and welcome to my channel. I like to inspire mental health. If you're not already subscribed, please subscribe to my channel. I post weekly videos about mental health and my experience with bipolar disorder. This week's video is going to be a little bit different because I am going to talk about why I was diagnosed with dyslexia, which is a learning disability. In this week's video, I'm going to talk about how I was diagnosed, how it affected me, and how it affects me today, as well as some misconceptions. And stay until the end to hear about 10 celebrities who also have dyslexia. So first I want to start off by a kind of disclaimer. I was diagnosed with dyslexia by 2 different tests. I don't believe I have the worst kind of dyslexia, but I do have several things that have affected me throughout my life. It has affected me more in some areas and some time periods of my life than it probably doesn't now. But with that, here is how I got diagnosed. So basically, I used to play the violin and the piano. And one of the things that is very important to learning how to play is learning how to read. But although I was in piano and violin lessons, or I was studying music for a total of about 5 years, I think, I never learned how to read. And I didn't know why. I didn't understand why I couldn't read. It was pretty embarrassing sometimes whenever I would have violin tests in school, and you had to turn over the paper and you had to read it and play it at the same time, right? Like you've never seen the piece of music, and that was very embarrassing because what I would do is I can play by ear a lot of the things. So what I would do is I would memorize the music through ear, and I would just kind of compensate on the fact that I couldn't read. And that happened for a while. I had, class persons, I had classes one-on-one with people, and for some reason I couldn't. And then, let's just say I couldn't. It was very difficult to learn how to read. And so then basically one day, my piano teacher, he couldn't make it, so I had a substitute. And then I'm trying to play, right? And I'm messing up, and I'm sorry, I switched the notes. And she was like, do you have dyslexia? And I was like, I don't know. And now she was like, because I have dyslexia, and that is the kind of stuff that happened to me, to be diagnosed. And I was like, okay, so my brain starts thinking, okay, this kind of makes sense because of my struggles when I was a little kid, because things that have happened before in my learning, my learning capabilities when I was younger. So then the next day at school, I decided to go to my counselor, and I write on a paper, I want to talk to you about having dyslexia, and I misspelled dyslexia. So then she gets to know, and she looks at me and she starts laughing. She's like, this is, you misspelled it. I didn't really understand what you were trying to write. And then they gave me the test at school, and I took it, and it came out positive, which led me to have accommodations and have classes in school to kind of make the dyslexia not affect me as much. And also I was tested again, so that was later on, and this is all happening the same year, all these tests, even though I had struggled for a really long time. All this happened the same year I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. Some of the other things that would happen, especially that I can remember now because obviously I was very young when these symptoms started happening, was that I had a lot of trouble, and sometimes still do, to read out loud. I would, skip words or change the words, or, I wasn't able to fully read something without messing up. And that was a huge struggle. And in school, even when I was little, and that went on through high school and even in college in some areas, I would study so hard. I would study. My mom says that I would study from the time I got home until midnight, and I would still not make the grades that should have been made with those studying attempts, while people would study much less and be doing way better in school. And that was very frustrating for me because I just didn't understand why, and it just took so much effort from me. And one of the other struggles I had was that, for example, when I write essays or in writing anything, I have a lot of grammar issues, and that still happens to me. That's why I use some like grammar software, because it helps me. But I don't know, it's weird to describe why I can't, like, why grammar is so hard for me. I don't know how to describe it. I mean, I guess it's part of it, right? That's one of the things that still affects me. And then also another thing was, okay, I said about reading out loud, but I would get really like a lot of anxiety whenever I would have to, like popcorn reading, when somebody would call your name. So what happens is that I would try to memorize what I was supposed to read, and then so like when somebody called me, I could read it right and not mess up, because that was pretty embarrassing, and I didn't want to look like I didn't know what I was doing. And so that was very that was kind of a struggle too. Also, whenever I took tests, especially for some specific classes, I could not finish my tests, and that was one of the other signs. I was always the last one to finish, and this is not the case on every class anymore. It depends also, for example, if it's like a lot of reading, a lot of numbers, or trying to connect different ideas together, it might take me longer than other people to do it. You can always, if you practice, it does get better. But in class, I remember I had this professor, a teacher, because we were in high school, and his son was dyslexic too, and this was throughout the time that I was like about to be diagnosed and stuff. And then he was like, it's okay, like take your time, because I had finished. And like it was like such a big anxiety that I would start crying while I was taking tests, because I was running out of time and everybody else has left. And the fear that you feel whenever everybody's getting up, everybody's leaving, and you're still taking your exam. So that was a struggle. And then he told me, it's okay, I'll close the door, no one's gonna come in, just finish your test, which really helped. And I feel like if a lot of professors or teachers had that understanding, it would help a lot of kids. So then with that, also another thing that would happen was, then still happens sometimes, I can hear a word and I don't know how to spell it, but it's not like the normal thing. It's like I tried to spell it with words that don't exist. Like I have a brain block, and it's like a word that anybody else could write, right? But then I'm like, how do you even spell it? Like what words exist, like what letters exist to make up that word? And it's kind of annoying, so I have to ask Siri. It's like, hey Siri, how do you spell this? How do you spell that? Whatever. And that helps. And another thing is, like, for example, like I had to ask the people who, like, I've learned English a really long time ago, right? I've been living here most of my life. I only really lived in Venezuela for 6 years. And I have, like, there's words that I still have trouble, like, pronouncing right, or, like, saying right. And I don't know why, or, like, I didn't know why until it started to make sense that, like, that was like the dyslexia, because I would always say, like, oh, I'm sorry, I can't say that, because I'm like, English is my second language, but English wasn't my second language anymore. I know more English than Spanish. How does this affect you now? So now it definitely doesn't play a role in my life as big as it used to when I was in high school, because it's like, I guess in my career that also influences the things that I do. They don't require as much, reading out loud or like doing certain things. But definitely one of the things that I struggle with is grammar and studying. Sometimes it takes me a really long time to study because I'm trying to comprehend things. Like when you have dyslexia, sometimes you skip over lines where you're not really paying attention to what you're reading, and it makes you go a lot slower. So I might take several more days to study fully than other people because of how long that takes. But definitely, there's some classes that affect me more than others. Like some classes I don't need extended time. For example, if it's a multiple choice test and you have 75 minutes and it's not like a paragraph, it's not SAT style or high school English style, then I can take it in class and I'll be fine. I might not be the first person to finish, but sometimes I'm not even the last. So it's also, that just shows that like it depends on like what type of thing you're doing, and it's not going to affect every single thing that you do. So yeah, that's how it affects me. I think another way is, like I said before, like in presentations, I misspelled something, so my whole team got points off because of it. But I've had to learn how to manage that, like saying like, hey everybody, let's all check the grammar please, because we don't want to get points off because of this. But most of my grades and stuff, like content is perfect, but then it's like grammar, spelling error, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I don't even notice, I don't even know how to fix this. But yeah, that's kind of my struggle right now. It's not as big as it used to be, and it might not be. I don't know if other people who are watching this and have dyslexia, like, tell me how it's affected you throughout your life. But that's how it's been for me. So now we're gonna talk about some misconceptions. So there are several things that the people around the world think that are not necessarily true about dyslexia, and one of the things is that people think that people who have learning disabilities, it doesn't just have to be dyslexia, are dumb. And that is not true. Dyslexia does not affect your intelligence. Personally, I have gone to where I am because I did get good grades. Do I think I could have gotten better grades if I didn't have the struggles? Yes, but I still got to where I am. It doesn't affect your intelligence. It just, a lot of times it's also about how you're being taught things, right? It's not that we can't learn, it's about how it's being taught. And sometimes we're labeled as dumb, or not dumb, or like seen as less, or like we feel insecure, right, about, you know, reading all this stuff, and we get trapped into feeling bad about ourselves and feeling like we can't accomplish things in life. But that is not true. If you're struggling right now, there's a lot of online resources if your school doesn't offer those resources. Another thing is that people think that people with dyslexia just need glasses to fix it. And that is not true. I use glasses and I still mess up. So it's not about putting on glasses and it magically fixes the problem. That is not it. Dyslexia is not like a problem that you fix with glasses. So I think going back to the misconceptions, people think that people who have learning disabilities are not intelligent, so therefore they label certain people with having a learning disability. And the truth is that a lot of people can have it. You don't necessarily have to be failing a class to have a learning disability. And I mean, it can be shown in different ways, and a lot of people can be, you know, it's like on a spectrum. Some people might have it worse than others. And like I said, I don't think I have the worst kind whatsoever, but it has impacted me in my life in some ways. And it was especially hard to be diagnosed with that whenever I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, because it was a relief to be diagnosed because it kind of made sense, but at the same time it was like, ugh, another. I also want to say that, you know, understand that having a learning disability is only the ability to see the world in a different way, and that nothing can stop you. And there are some pretty amazing people in this world who also have had dyslexia and other learning disabilities, and I will tell you those right now. So the 10 celebrities that have dyslexia or were diagnosed with dyslexia are Walt Disney, Tom Cruise, Jim Carrey, Albert Einstein, John F. Kennedy, George Washington, and George W. Bush, John Lennon, and Jennifer Aniston. So clearly those people didn't let anything stop them. You have artists as well as scholars, people who invented many great things. So with that, I hope you liked this video, and if you did, please like, comment, and please subscribe. And always remember that there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and a bad day does not mean a bad life.